Hello, folks. Welcome to today's episode of the Hospitable Host podcast. On today's episode, we have information on the inspiring journey of Brandon Christensen, an Airbnb superhost who, alongside his wife Cassie, transformed a vacant log cabin in the heart of the Pocono Mountains into a thriving short-term rental. Brandon shares some of the highs and lows of the 16-month renovation process, the unique challenges of managing a property from a different state, and how their passion for travel and creating memorable experiences for guests drove their success. Hey, Brandon, awesome to have you today. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So whereabouts are you joining us from, Brandon? Are you at your cabin now or are you elsewhere?
Not at my cabin now. We manage the cabin out of state. The cabin's located in the Poconos, Pennsylvania, and I live in New Jersey, down by the Jersey Shore.
Nice. Sweet. Sounds good. So maybe we can get straight into it, Brandon,
Yeah.
and maybe you can tell me a bit more about your background and kind of how you got into hospitality in the first place. That'd be a great place to start, I think.
Yeah, definitely. So, actually, never anticipated myself owning an Airbnb or getting into short-term rentals. I started my career in software sales out of college. My wife, who I kind of co-run the cabin with, she's a mental health care professional, licensed social worker. So we met in college, and we both kind of graduated and went to our own separate career paths. And in my job as software sales, I would meet with a lot of business owners, CEOs, stuff like that. So I got a really good knowledge base about business, about how businesses work, about different industries. So we did that for a few years, and during that process, we purchased our first home, which was a bank-owned foreclosure, and that house needed a ton of work. I mean, and it would have been a little intimidating, but my family is in the construction industry, so I had the help of my dad.
Nice.
So we did that project. It was pretty extensive renovations, and that was our first taste of renovation and construction, and we kind of got hooked on it. Throughout that journey, we actually lived in the house for 2 years. And we came to a point where my wife and I were establishing our careers. My wife had just got clinically licensed, and I had been kind of feeling the call of entrepreneurship. I kind of felt during my meetings that I might be sitting at the wrong side of the table. Not that there was anything wrong with the side of the table that was on, but
Yeah.
Any entrepreneur knows that, like, when you hear the call of entrepreneurship, you have to kind of follow it. So it was a little intimidating to jump out of corporate and kind of start our own businesses. My wife helped me with that. So we jumped our corporate jobs, sold our house and all of our possessions, moved into a little studio apartment down the shore, and started a mental health care company, which is something my wife always wanted to do. And I was more so not caring what industry the business was in. I just wanted to run a business. And mental health care is much needed right now with the world we live in, for sure. So
For sure. Yeah.
So we did that. The company had grown, and we did that for a few years, and then COVID hit, and we had the opportunity to travel pretty extensively. We went to a 49-state road trip. Hotels were very cheap during COVID, so we were on the road for like 2 months. We worked remotely, so it actually kind of worked out really good for us. And it was then when we really started getting a passion for travel, and we stayed at a lot of Airbnbs. We had some good experiences, some not so good experiences. Stayed at a lot of hotels, so we learned a lot about hospitality doing that. Did a couple more real estate projects, and it wasn't until I was really on the front porch of my dad's house, who lives down the Jersey Shore. He had just purchased a home, and he had a garage rental apartment in the back of it. And I had been kind of like telling him, "Hey, you should get it on Airbnb. You should get it on Airbnb." And it took a little work, but he finally allowed me to list it. So I listed it for him. And within the first hour of listing it, I think we got like 3 bookings. And
Oh, wow.
I was hooked. I heard those little dings, and I was like, man, my love for travel and, love for business kind of just collided here. So that's kind of how we ended up, getting into the industry, getting the cabin, and yeah.
I'm sure listeners will want to know 49 states. So which one are we still going to check off?
Hawaii is the last state.
Because you couldn't drive to it on the road trip.
Couldn't drive to it. We had to choose between Hawaii and Alaska, and we chose Alaska. And I'm glad we did, because Alaska, I mean, is one of the most beautiful places on earth. I think I'd love to go back there again. But
amazing.
We'll make it to Hawaii at some point.
Fair enough. That's good. Yeah, a couple more seasons of bookings at the cabin, and then you'll have the money, right?
Exactly, exactly.
So, how comes? So, obviously, Pocono Mountains is where you've kind of ended up, and you mentioned that. How did you go about kind of picking that cabin that you were going to renovate, and what kind of condition was that cabin in? How much work did you see ahead of yourself, really?
Yeah. Well, we were looking for a project, so we were looking for homes
Mm,
that needed some work. Every real estate project we go on, we kind of like to make it our own, and so that was actually part of our criteria. We had some other
yeah.
criteria, like it had to be within like a 2 hour drive of New Jersey. We wanted something we could
Mm,
use for our family. It had to be something. There had to be something unique about the property. We had to feel something when we were on it. It had to have some kind of special nature to it. Those were some of the criteria. We started looking upstate New York just because we've been there quite a bit, Hudson Valley, and we really like that area. We had
yeah.
gotten into bidding wars on a couple other properties. Actually, right before the cabin, we were bidding on a house that was up in kind of by Hunter Mountain at 5 acres with a waterfall on it. It was like I really wanted that one, and it kind of fell through, which is okay. It actually ended up selling for like $200,000 more than what the guy had it listed for.
Oh,
So
wow.
it was probably like not a smart financial decision for
Yeah.
us to do
Probably
that.
a lucky escape, I guess.
Yeah, maybe a lucky escape. Yeah, people get it, in real estate, man. People get so emotional, and it's hard to balance that because
Yeah.
you have to remember that this is also like an investment. Um, so after we lost that property, my wife was like, "Man, upstate New York is just very competitive, very crazy. Like, why don't we look at the Poconos?" And
Mm,
we hadn't really spent much time in the Poconos. I stayed as a child. Anybody who lives in New Jersey or the Northeast, has had some sort of childhood memory of the Poconos. But we hadn't spent much time there as adults, so I was like, okay, let's check it out. And I pulled up Zillow, and the first search that I did was the cabin, and it was listed under
wow.
24 hours ago, and it was a very affordable. We got a great deal on that property. So I called the realtor, and like same day we went up and we saw it, and that's kind of how we landed in the Poconos area.
Amazing. That's cool. Wow.
Yeah.
And so lucky as well to be kind of one of the first to view it, no doubt, even on Zillow, right?
Yeah, I was watching on Zillow the views and the saves go up and up and up all day, and I was like, "Oh man,
Missing out.
this is gonna be a competitive one." And it was actually. There
Yeah.
were seven other
Mm.
offers on that
Oh,
property,
wow.
and we were able to get it. Actually, using a pretty unique real estate trick.
Mm.
There's something called an escalation clause, which is what we utilized, and I actually learned this technique from another house that I was selling, and the buyer used an escalation clause, and it's something I
Yeah.
hadn't really known about beforehand, but it's what got us this deal. And it basically says like you submit an offer with the top price you're willing to
Mm.
pay for the property, and you say you'll beat any offer up to this amount by like 500, $1,000. So essentially, like if you're in a situation where there's many bidders, you can
Yeah.
pretty much guarantee beat anybody up until your max purchase price. So it ensures you get the house, but also it ensures you don't overpay. So that's what
Yeah. That's good.
ended up happening.
Nice. Good. I like it. Sounds good.
Yeah.
And then, kind of, how did you manage like the whole renovation project from like afar, right? So you're in a different state. I know, a couple hours drive, but still, like, it's not down the road. You've already got kind of like a 9 to 5. You have two kids now. I think maybe
Two
just the
kids.
one at the time.
Yep.
Yeah. How did you find that whole process?
Yeah, I mean, that was very challenging. Like, I think we were a little ambitious in doing the out of state project, and
Mm,
um, I'm not gonna lie, it was very hard at times. I think the hardest part was like, one, we had a baby, so
yeah.
we couldn't even take the baby out. It's not suitable for there. I mean, there were the issues of the house were just so much. I mean, there was mold, there were structural
Fair.
problems, there was no place for a baby. So that was one. My wife stayed home a lot. I would go out there, for the day. There were many 16-hour days. It's a 2 hour drive there, and then 2 hour drive back. We did extensive searching for contractors in the area, and we found a few good ones who we were able to coordinate over the phone with, without a problem. But finding like a general contractor was very difficult in that specific area. So what I ended up doing was we had one of my dad's workers who I have a
Mm.
relationship with. He would come out and help and take the drive. But it's probably one of the reasons why the project took so long is just we're going out there kind of, when we can. And,
Yeah.
so it was difficult, but we did it. And, there's always a point in every project where you get to the middle of it and you're like, oh man, what did we make a mistake here? Like, why did we do this? And you have all these thoughts, and then the project's over and you're just rearing it to get the next one. And it happens every time we do a project. It's like in the middle of it, I never want to do this again. And then, you finish it, and then 6 weeks later, you're itching to do the next thing.
Yeah, fair. Brilliant. I love it. So obviously, you're talking about doing the next thing, and I think, the Airbnb aspect is the next thing for you from software sales and mental health kind of roles. Did you find that you could kind of bring any of that kind of experience in across to like the Airbnb world? Have you kind of used any of that to kind of your advantage?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like all the work experience, even in the different industries that we've had
Mm.
so far, is transferable, right? So, like with the mental health care company, a lot of learning aspects from that, like how to create systems. When we set out to do an Airbnb, I think a lot of people look at Airbnb as a real estate investment primarily,
Yeah.
and it is a real estate investment, but more importantly, like you're running a hospitality company, and I think that's what like a lot of Airbnb owners get wrong is that you know it's not just collect the rent. There's nothing passive about it. Like you're competing to provide exceptional experiences to guests. So we always looked at it from that perspective, and I think that helped in regards to how we designed the place, decisions that we made. But creating those systems has been essential to us in our mental health care company. We have to have the systems in place, or else it doesn't run the way it needs to run. The construction experience obviously comes in handy, for renovation. But we use leverage in
Mm.
technology. It just allows us to do more and do it better in a way that just makes everything streamlined. So I think all those learning experiences have helped, and also social media too. I mean,
Yeah.
Instagram has been a game changer in regards to the success of our cabin, the
Yeah.
building of our network, and it's something that we learned a lot of what not to do with our first
Mm.
business. And we approached social media from a completely different perspective when we started the cabin. So I think that's had a big impact.
Nice, I like that. Yeah, I'd love to kind of touch on social media a bit more, but maybe first technology because you kind of touched
Mhm.
on that as well. If
Yeah.
you don't mind, would you like be happy to share some of the tools that you do use in your business? Like, I'm sure that you probably use dynamic pricing to kind of get going and decide the price of your
Hmm.
property. I'm sure
Yeah.
that you use Hospitable. Maybe you can chat through some of the different tools that you've been using and like how that's kind of helped you, get started and keep optimizing the business and make sure
Yeah.
that you're getting kind of bookings at the right price as well.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we heavily lean on technology.
Mm.
We can't compete with thousands of data points that dynamic pricing like Price Labs can do. So when we came to our pricing strategy, that was our first move was to get Price Labs up and running,
Yeah.
and it just takes away the headache. That tool is great. You can set all kinds
Mm.
of custom parameters. It adjusts your pricing according to the competition in the market and the times of year and things like that. So that just removes the total headache of self pricing. As far as running the cabin, Hospitable has been the pillar on
Mm-hmm.
how we built this business, and we did extensive research on property management systems prior to joining Hospitable. We did a bunch of free trials, and we just found that Hospitable was the most user friendly.
Yeah.
It had the most features, and just is overall like a great tool. And it's kind of hard when you're choosing a technology system to run your business off of. And
Yeah.
with the mental health care company, it's the same thing. Like the EHR system we use is like it's the core of your business. So making that decision is so important. And if you have to change that system down the road, you don't want to do that. Like you want to start with a system that you can just grow on. And I think we made the right choice with Hospitable. We love the features that it has. It literally saves us 10, 15 hours a week, probably. And it integrates with a lot of stuff like our smart lock. The codes get generated automatically. We don't have to deal with those guests, checking in. It's just all automated. The messaging feature where, when somebody books, it automatically sends out the welcome message with our
Yeah.
electronic guest book that we made. And I think that's a big thing too, is like, just go on Etsy and find an electronic guest book, and such a simple. We spent $10 on that template, and it just makes people feel like, it was $10 template and then maybe 5 hours of really providing a lot of value. We have
Mm,
all the different hikes in there. We have all the different local restaurants. We have
nice.
information about our community, check in, check out. It's just, and they get it right to their phone. And they're just doing that is just such a simple thing guest hosts can do. But a couple other platforms that we do use that have been really helpful is StayFi is great. StayFi is
Nice. Yeah.
a tool where if you've ever if for anybody listening, if you've stayed in a hotel, you have to put your name and email in to get access to Wi-Fi, and StayFi allows us to do that as an Airbnb, and it collects guest data, and then that syncs with our MailerLite email marketing software, so we can start building a list of everybody who stayed at the cabin, and then hopefully keep in touch with them through email marketing and text marketing, and get them to book again in the future. But if you're not getting that data, that the emails, the phone numbers, and everything for guests that are staying at your cabin, it's a missed opportunity to stay in touch with them and get them back.
Yeah,
So
definitely, for sure. Yeah, big fans of StayFi as well. So I'm sure they'll appreciate the shout out
yeah,
there.
yeah,
And then on kind of the social media piece, because I promised we'd come back to that. You kind of touched on Instagram for kind of learning about what to do and learning from others, but I guess you're also using it for marketing, right? Because you guys have a pretty strong Instagram handle of your own that's kind of got
hmm
quite a decent following and some beautiful imagery on there. So feel free to shout out the handle so that people can go check it out as well. So yeah, maybe
yeah.
tell me a bit more about your experience of that and how you've been using Instagram in a bit more detail.
Yeah, yeah. So we decided on Instagram that was going to be the platform when we got the cabin, and we
Mm,
wanted to create that account to just ultimately like document the renovation journey while we were doing it,
yeah.
with the idea of like, we build the audience while we build the cabin, and then when
Mm,
we launch, we'll have X amount of people that have been following the journey that will want to stay there. So that was the plan, and we just documented everything, the renovations. Whenever we go out there, we would take content, and um, originally I had looked at Instagram as a way to get bookings and to make money and to use it for marketing purposes. But what
yeah.
I didn't expect was the community that was going to be built through the process, and all the other value that was added aside from just getting bookings. Like our Instagram account is at the Poconos Cozy Cabin, by the way, but we connected with a group of 50 plus short-term rental owners in the Poconos area through Instagram. And now we're in that group, and everybody shares resources. Everybody, shares advice. We have that to go to when situations arise where we're not sure how to handle. So that's been a great resource. We've met so many like photographers. The imagery that we have in the videos are all from professional photographers that we hired to go out to the cabin. And
Nice.
that was something that I battled with Cassie about, because Cassie was very gung ho about using professional photography. And I was like, we have iPhones. Let's just like save the money and just go out there. Like,
Yeah.
I can take a video. But she's like, no, no, I found this photographer on Instagram. We have to use them. And I was like, okay, fine. We'll give it a try. And thank God we did, because we would have never been able to capture what the professional photographers captured. And it's one of the reasons why I think our account has grown, is
Yeah.
because we're putting out higher level content and really good imagery. And that's what people want to see. So I think that's been really helpful.
Yeah, I think it makes a big difference. Like, yes, you do have an iPhone, and everyone listening probably has, one of some kind, but it really does make a big difference, right? That small expense of hiring a photographer can, make a massive difference to your bottom line in the long run, right? It's
Yeah.
worth the investment.
I told Cassie though that like I'm getting dangerous with it, because I bought a drone recently, and so now I have that when I go out there. We got some drone shots.
Nice. Yeah, drone shots are pretty cool, though. I love that. Cool. So, as well as it obviously being an amazing cabin, because I've checked out the Instagram, I've checked out the Airbnb listing. How else are you kind of making sure that guests have a positive experience that kind of stands out and sets you guys apart from a competition, essentially?
Yeah. I think actually one of the benefits of having the Instagram is that a lot of our bookings have come from that.
Mm,
And we find that the guests that come from Instagram actually, they come with like an expectation and a level of respect for the cabin that like other guests from Airbnb, like you can tell when an Instagram guest is at the cabin. So that's like just prepping the guests for what they to expect, and they know all the amenities already. They know the care that's been put into it.
yeah.
So that's one aspect of it. But for any guest, we provide like a little welcome cookie baking kit, which people really like. They can bake. I mean, you're in a cabin in the woods, you want to bake cookies. Like it's a cool thing.
That's cute.
Um,
Yeah.
we've put like special attention into just every aspect of the design of the cabin, like to
Mm,
make the stay luxurious and to feel, because people want to stay in a cabin in the woods, but they don't really want to stay in a cabin in the woods. Like
yeah.
at least me and Cassie don't, like you want to be in the woods, but you want to be comfortable, right? So
100%. Yeah.
that's the whole vibe we went for. We have a big picture window that overlooks the backyard. We opted not to put a regular couch in the cabin. We put
Mm,
a day bed for a couch in the cabin. And aesthetically, we had a lot of people, like when we were making the purchase decision, push back on that. They're like, "Oh, you really want to do that?" Like, because a couch or chairs look better, but
yeah.
functionality wise, if you're traveling all day, you get into your cat, you just want to lounge,
Yeah.
and we put a projector screen in front of that big picture window so it turns into a movie screen at night. Little details
Nice.
like that just like help make that experience really special for the guests.
Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I think you've touched on a good point there of like, functional design, not just it looking nice, right?
Right.
Obviously, you need it to look nice, but like at the same time, people actually want to be able to relax in the cabin and like
Hmm.
get the most out of their stay there, not just take the pretty pictures, really.
Yeah. And we tested that too. Like,
Yeah.
before we went live, we had probably a month or two time period where we had some friends and family stay out
Mm,
there, and we ironed out those kinks, before any real guests, came. And I think that was also a really crucial thing that we did. Like, for example, we had one guest stay, and they gave us their feedback, and they were like, "Oh, like everything was great, but like the sump pump was kind of loud." And we
mm,
noticed that at night it was like, it would go off like every like 15-20 minutes, and it made it a little difficult to sleep. Like that's something that I wouldn't even thought about, because
yeah.
I had
Yeah.
not slept out there. And we actually had an influencer speak that was staying, soon after they had given us that feedback. And I remember like the day before the influencer came to stay, I like drove out there, and for 14 hours, me and my buddy worked to soundproof
Wow.
the sump pump in the crawl space. And we got it done, and it solved the problem. And now
Wow.
we get zero complaints about that. So doing stuff like that, I think,
Amazing.
is really helpful.
Yeah, it's good, and that's kind of another great tidbit is like really listening to guest feedback. Obviously, that's slightly different because it's someone you know, but like just that feedback in general is like act on it, right? Because there'll be guests that maybe don't say anything, but like it maybe like affected their stay to some degree, to some small degree.
Yeah.
So whenever you do get any of those little bits of feedback, like pay attention to it because it can actually be very useful to listen to and act on.
100%. Yeah. And we seek that out too. Even
Mm,
like now that we're live on Airbnb, we've been up for like 4 months. I think we've had like 30 reviews on Airbnb. And one of the automated messages that we set up on Hospitable is
yeah,
a checkout message that goes out. And, it basically says like, "Hey, we're so happy that, you enjoy, we hope you enjoyed your stay. Thanks for coming. You
yeah,
know, we're a small family run business. If you enjoyed your stay and you felt like you had a 5-star experience, it would be awesome if you left us 5 stars. But if you didn't, please message us here, and let us
yeah,
know what could have been improved." And then that gives us a chance to like damage control in case
yeah.
maybe there was something that we missed, and that's been really
Mm.
helpful.
No, that's smart. That's a good idea on automated message for any hosts out there using
Yeah,
Hospitable.
yeah, because I
Um,
mean, like a 4-star review on Airbnb is
yeah,
detrimental. It can be if you're new too. So you want to keep that under control.
only fives. We want only
Only
fives.
fives. Only fives. Yep.
Good stuff. So, obviously everything's going fantastic with this cabin. A pretty positive experience of renovating it. What do you reckon? When are you going to take on another one? Do you think that's in the pipeline?
It's funny that you say that because after this podcast, I'm going to pick up our next project.
Wow, there we go.
Yeah.
I love it.
So we had a baby 6 weeks ago, and we're
Congratulations.
feeling. Thank you, and we're already feeling the itch though to get another project going. I don't know,
Wow.
maybe it's a huge mistake, but Cass and I have been talking about like what the next project's going to look like, and I think
Yeah.
with our new family situation, we wanted to do something like an out of state renovation is really not in the
Yeah.
cards right now. It was just too much work. But we also like New Jersey real estate is so expensive.
Mm.
And we want somewhere out of state too. So
Yeah.
we were like thinking, how could we solve this problem? And I was like, why don't we just like get a tiny house on wheels,
Yeah. Nice.
and we can build it here, and then we can figure out we can find some land somewhere and just put it out there. So I looked on Facebook Marketplace, and within like 10 minutes, I found someone selling in New Jersey a tiny house that hadn't been completed. It's just basically a shell,
Yeah.
and so we bought it a couple days ago.
Amazing.
Yeah, we just like drove the same day. We drove up there, we saw it, and we made them an offer, and it worked out. And so yeah, I got at 2:30, 3 o'clock. We're going to pick it up. So
Amazing. I love that. I can't wait to see the Instagram profile for that one as well. Let's see the transformation.
yeah, oh yeah, we'll document the whole process. So it'll be a fun one.
That's cool. Yeah, I like that's a bite-sized project. That'll be easy. Don't be worried.
Easy. Yeah,
We'll
two,
smash that out
two,
in no time.
200 square feet, no problem. We're gonna.
Simple.
Yeah.
I love it. And then, so kind of getting towards the end now, Brandon. Just kind of one final question. And you've kind of given a lot of advice as we've gone through, but what would you say that kind of one thing that like the biggest lesson that you've learned that you would pass on to other hosts that are maybe kind of just starting out, maybe they're doing a renovation or kind of a big project to get started on their,
Hmm.
Airbnb journey? What
Yeah.
is the kind of number one piece of advice you want to give out?
Well, I have a bunch, but if I had to like iron it down
Yeah.
to like the number one piece of advice, I would say document all of it and share it
Mm,
on, get a social media started. Really, I mean that's been a huge. Aside from just having a great Airbnb, like we have value in the social media channel that we've built,
yeah.
and the relationships that have came from that, the other hosts that we've met, the support, the community. It's been you like I had this flawed thinking of like that like other Airbnb hosts are competition, and
Mm,
that's just such a limiting mindset. And
yeah.
Instagram has kind of opened up my eyes to like no, we're all like we're building an industry together, hosts,
Yeah.
and it's everybody has knowledge and resources that we can share, and if we help other hosts do better, everybody wins, right? Because townships are cracking down on short-term rentals. They are, so we're fighting a battle here. So,
No, for sure.
but,
Everyone's got to band together as much as they can, and that's definitely the biggest piece of feedback that we get on most episodes of this podcast is that, or the biggest surprise about the industry is how close everyone is, and it's not just on the hosting side, but like on the vendor side, everyone's kind of
yeah,
working together to try and like help grow this industry. And
yeah,
so, I think it's fair to say that reach out to fellow hosts in your areas, ask them questions, how they've kind of got started and that kind of thing. If you run into problems, there's Facebook communities, there's Instagram pages, there's people out
yeah.
there to kind of offer advice, right?
Yep. And the other tidbit that I would say too is like if
Mm.
you're, like just don't watch TV and like listen to a podcast, right? Like
Yeah.
that's like what
Wait
we
a
would do is
minute. Listen to this podcast, but
listen to this podcast, right? Exactly.
okay.
So that there's so many free resources out there where you can
Yeah.
learn, and people are just giving out information. So
Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Cool. Well, thank you very much, Brandon. Been fantastic having you on. Do you want to give one more shout out to your Instagram channel? Because I'm sure that everyone wants to go and check it out again.
yes, our Instagram channel is the Poconos Cozy Cabin, and we're Brandon and Cassie. So would appreciate it if you guys checked it out and followed our journey.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Brandon. It's been fantastic having you on.
All right, thanks, Miles.